Hello and welcome to the Hugh Hatrick Show. And on tonight's show, I have a very special guest indeed. It is a real racing driver from the series of F1000. It is Bert Chapman from Chapman's Corner. Welcome to the show tonight, Bert.
Thank you so much, Hugh. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, speaking with you, meeting you, hearing a bit about your story, and hopefully sharing a little bit about myself and my short time in racing, but exciting one, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And to anyone who's not yet heard of Bert, his channel is in the description there. So I'm sure by the end of the show, you'll be hitting that subscribe button to help support what is a fantastic channel and what is a great racing driver, as we are about to see. So I always start, Bert, with this question. How did your kind of passion for motorsport begin? What was it? How did you start? How did it all become?
It's a great question, and I love hearing it from others, other drivers, other people that are passionate in motorsport, because everyone's is slightly different. Mine is a little bit different in the sense of I didn't, I wasn't 4, 6, 7, 8 years old with Schumacher on my wall. I didn't quite get the racing. I wasn't in a racing family or anything. So, and I do think that motorsport and racing is quite you're either in it or you're not, a type of sport or industry. But what I did like was cars. So I had all the top trumps. If it wasn't dinosaurs, it was cars. And I had all the top trumps for cars. Could name every single one. I had James Bond's, half of his cars, the XKR, the bad guys from Die Another Day. You had all the models with all the guns that come out of it. And yeah, I used to play with model cars all the time, top trumps. Would love to hear them on the road, and just was obsessed with cars. Really, I went through my whole teenage years wanting nice cars, but never been able to have them. Get to adult life, and you still want to have the nice cars, but you can't have them either. And I guess that's when I started seeing the odd clip about racing and all of that. I did, I think I may have done karting 3 times. I think I did it at a 16th birthday party, which I won. I did it at a 25th birthday party, which I won, and it was one of those where I thought, I quite enjoy this karting thing that I don't get to do, this kind of semi-expensive sport that others seem to do. And I just thought there must be a way into it. And then lo and behold, Drive to Survive happened, right? And whether you have the viewpoint of the DTS fans, it was incredible for the sport. I think for F1, for all motor racing, I think that they shone a spotlight onto such an exciting sport that got more people into it and grew a fan base, right? And I definitely was part of that. In my old age, I think it was 31 at the time. I'm 33 now. Or it might be 30 actually. So when I first watched Drive Survive, I thought, this is incredible. The sounds, the visuals, the intensity. Drama wasn't really for me. It's more about the racing and the cars and the excitement. And I watched a few episodes, ended up on YouTube watching every clip under the sun that I could possibly watch about racing and cars. And then it started, once I got it from a racing perspective, from how the teams operate, how the businesses operate, how the drivers prep and do everything, I just thought, well, this looks really fun. What's the closest thing I can do, right? And I live in Surrey, and Daytona Sandown Park is the closest karting track. And I just turned up, didn't know what I was doing, just arrived, obviously paid your bit to get on track. And I skipped the 4 strokes and went straight to the 2 strokes. So you can imagine how that went for your first time.
Yeah, I was going to say.
A lot of lockups, a lot of spins, a lot of crashes, but had a blast. I've never felt adrenaline like it. So I basically started going back once a week. Probably wasn't quite that much. It felt like I was back once a week, but it was, every couple of weeks I was there doing a race or a practice. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Just got the thrill, got the adrenaline, went with friends, and then just thought, okay, did that for about 6 to 9 months. I did that for, and then thought, okay, well, now I want to race cars. Can I go even quicker? And that's when I ended up on YouTube, just looking at all sorts of different cars, different types of racing, getting to learn that element of it. And that's when I actually came across the F1000, the cars that I drive now. And it all happened very quickly from there, really, where I just thought the sound, the speed, everything, I'd love to have a go in one of these. I wonder how I make that happen. Now, not from a racing background, don't know many people. I knew no one that raced cars. I didn't know a single person that raced cars. I do find that the industry is very much if you know people, easy to get things done and get drives and understand it. If you don't know anyone or you don't understand it, then it's a little bit more difficult. But I just basically went along to a race. I went to Brands Hatch to watch what was 750 Motor Club, which hosts the F1000 guys and a load of other cool categories, and just went and watched, fell in love with it, went and spoke to some teams and team owners in the paddock, which I think is definitely something for a new driver. You got to put yourself out there, have the confidence to go and speak to people, rather than just, they're not going to come to you. You really have to put yourself out there. But took some details, and then found out you need a racing license to race cars. So that was quite funny. I assume you could just jump in and you'd be fine, but no, you got to go get your ARDs, go get your race license, and very quick and easy and simple to get. Probably the easiest test I've ever taken, to be honest with you. So got that squared away, I think, back in 2023. And then 1 week later, I was doing a test up at Silverstone. I was in an old Formula 4 2000, a Van der Meen one. And then I was able to actually test the F1000. And then, the rest is history, really. I haven't really looked back. So not your traditional grew up loving racing, but had the passion for the cars, the sound, the noise, the smell. And then from there, with the amount of content available on YouTube of seeing so many cool drivers on boards, how different people get into it. That's kind of how I got into the real world. And one thing we're obviously missing from that story, and such a key part of it, is the sim racing side. And because I got into the racing and straight into the real racing, in tandem, I also got a sim. So an old Logitech G29, I think they're called.
Oh, I had one of those. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, yes. Just as I started karting. So I had them in parallel, right? I was karting when I could, enduring the weather and everything. But I also had this sim at home. And it was this, I should have sent you a picture. It was an old fold-out chair in the living room using the TV as the screen. And I had a housemate at the time. Fortunately, it was actually it's my flat, so my rules, my say. But the poor bloke had to deal with this fold-out chair, which, because of storage in a small apartment, wasn't fold-out. It was a permanent fixture in the middle of the living room, and he had no interest in racing or sim racing, so it was quite entertaining. But he knew I loved it. He knew it was a passion. So the sim racing side of it absolutely was from kind of day one of the karting. I had that as well. So upgraded after about a year to a sort of Fanatec setup. Obviously I've put a lot more miles and hours into the sim racing than I have the real life racing, because that's the naturally how it goes, of course.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. I mean, that's a great story. And it's interesting to see the choices that you made going into Formula 1000. Obviously, you watched a lot of different things on YouTube to try and find cars that were suitable, and then that's what you ended up in. Was there a big difference in cost going for something like Formula 1000 to like the starter series like Formula Ford and its equivalent?
It's a really good question, and I think I mean I hadn't done any racing, right? I had no context as to which is more expensive, what's what. I was fortunate enough, I pay for my racing mostly through my day job, and I do have a sponsor. Getting into it a bit later in life, in your early 30s, well, not everyone, but you're at a point where I had some savings and I had money to blow on racing, right?
Yeah.
So it was a case of, can I afford to do the one I want to do? And I was a big fan. It's funny how it goes, right? Spent my whole life growing up loving closed wheel sports or road cars, right? And then once I got racing, I started falling in love with single seaters. directness of how it all works, and watching the F1. For me, actually, I love I do, I quite like some of the modern racing, drivers like Verstappen. But my favorite racing is like the V8 era.
Yeah. Oh, the noise was incredible.
Just for the noise. I know the V10 is more sought after, but it's just the size of the cars I like, the 09 Brawn car, all of those. I just really like that era. So that's what I tend to find myself watching the racing. And then the F1000 being a motorbike engine, 1000cc, it has that higher rev range of, we shift at about 12.8, I think it is. So you get that higher pitch, the scream of it. And that's what really put me onto it. So just in terms of cost, I didn't even look at other series, to be honest with you. I just looked at this one that I wanted to do, saw that I could do it for a year or two, and thought, okay, well, let's just go into it. And I mean, we've got plenty of time to chat today, so I'm sure we'll get onto it a bit later. But speaking to other drivers that I've got into the series in the last year, they did a similar thing where they looked at other series, and I think it comes down to a few factors: cost of the car, cost of maintenance and owning it. Can you run it yourself? How much do the engines and rebuilds cost? And you've kind of got to get a spreadsheet or something to compare them, because some Formula Fords, I think their engines are quite expensive. Ours are cheaper, but they blow more often. Can you run it yourself? I've got no mechanical background, so that was never going to happen. I had to run with a team. So there's a lot of factors that come into play.
Yeah, I mean, certainly when watching the racing, it's incredibly fast for what looks like quite a small car when you see it on a television. But it's incredibly close. But they seem to be really hitting it around the corners, good on the straights. And is there quite a big difference between you've got, obviously you're in the F1000, and the races that you have, is it all F1000 cars, or are there other categories that mix in with that?
Yeah, good question. So for the last, I think it's 5 years, F1000 has run with the 750 Motor Club, who are the organizer, who then have many other different categories within it, hot hatches, varying other typs of cars like Mazda 7s, things like that, Mazda MX-5s. So you can pick your category, pick your poison, and go with what you want to do. The F1000 is the fastest in that, quite significantly faster. So if I had to break down, I love that question. If I have to break down what makes the F1000 fast and who do we race against, the Jedi F1000, so Jedi the manufacturer, F1000 the category. So Jedi F1000 cars, we run it as a single spec grid, so it's only F1000 against us. There is another organizer called Monoposto, who have been going for a equally, if not longer time. That is a mixed single-seater grid. It can be basically any car, I believe, before 2009. You've got F3 cars, but different categories of F3. And then you've got all the way back to Formula Ford type cars, right? So real historic stuff. So I've raced in a few of those races, mostly because they do the full GP Silverstone circuit rather than we usually do one of the halves. And it's really fascinating because the Jedi F1000 is not a very well-known car at all, I would say. A lot of people didn't even know they existed. That's a lot of the comments I get on my YouTube. And what's really exciting is people don't realize how fast they are and how competitive they are. And there's a few reasons for why they're so fast and competitive. But when I raced last back in, I think it was June, against F3 cars, I was really, really going after these F3 guys, and the fast ones as well, not the slow ones, the ones at the front. The first race, I got unlucky. I dropped 14 positions in the first corner because someone span in front of me. I had to avoid and went off into the gravel, came back on, and I just had a fun race getting back to I started P8 and got back to P3, which is incredible. Wow. And that's overtaking F3 cars at Silverstone, which is just I never thought I'd be doing that, to be completely honest. But I think obviously what makes the difference there and what makes the mixed category so interesting is you've got to really understand what the other cars are, what their advantages are versus ours. Now, if I had to compare let's just take an F3A versus an F3B, a F1000. We do have slicks, we do have wings, but we don't generate loads and loads of downforce. We generate enough to make an impact and to be considered a downforce car, but also it's a very soft setup because tubular. It's not a carbon monocoque chassis like the F3 cars. And please, if I get any of this wrong, because I'm only 2 years in. I didn't have a mechanical mind, so a lot of this I've learned. But imagine like a carbon monocoque chassis that you have in F3, F4, so much downforce, so much aero, such a stiff setup. Whereas ours, the suspension's much softer. The wings do plenty, but don't do a lot compared to a monocoque chassis. But we've got such a good power to weight difference. So, I mean, we're 420 kilos with driver, and they're looking at 650 kilos with driver. So we've got a better power to weight. So, that's why out of slow corners and on the straights, we do really well. But in fast corners, they've got so much aero advantage, and then they've got bigger brakes. So coming into braking zones, it's really interesting.
Because I mean, you see the revs. I see because you have that bit on your videos where you can see your revs and your speed, and then the way that you come into the corners and braking, and it does feel like it's quite a lot of work there. They can be quite feisty going through some of the corners, isn't it? And I always remember you driving. It was at Donington, and I think you were using the full loop, the full circuit there. And when you came on the back straight where you've got the chicane, it always seems that you've got to slow down more, because when I watched that at the Grand Prix many years ago, it seemed much tighter. But I think maybe they've straightened it out a little bit. But you come through there at some speed, using all the curves and more kind of going around there, isn't it? It's the first time you raced. I mean, what was it like? What were the feelings of, just because did you find yourself competitive first time out?
Yeah, it's a great question. My first race was eventful, let's say that. So my first race was 2023. So I've just finished my second full season, but 23 I only did half of the season. So I joined halfway through the race calendar at Croft. Now, the amount of time I'd spent in the car before then was one test day at Snetterton, where on the outlap of my second session, the drive shaft snapped. Those things happen, right? It's just motor racing. So I got 15 minutes in the car. I was planning to do a race at Croft, but the idea was to get full test in, so I'd know whether I was competitive and whether I should race. So what then happened was I had to get another test in 5 days before I was racing at Donington that you just mentioned to get to pace. And whilst I wouldn't say I got all the seat time I would have liked, because there was a lot of reds and yellows, I got plenty, and I was within 6 seconds of pole from the year before. So it's not competitive by any means, but it's amateur. Amateur racing, right? You can just drive. Funny, when I watched my first live race, when I went to watch at Brands, there was someone poodling around at the back, getting lapped multiple times. And, I sort of said, what's that person doing? Like, what's even the point? But then once you're racing, you realize I'm the one in the grandstand in the cold, while they're the one in the car doing the laps, right? So as long as you're enjoying yourself and you're learning, I think anyway, and you're driving cars around tracks, whether it's in real life or something, you're having a good time, and that's obviously what's important. But so I went into my first race, Croft. It was a triple header, so 3 races, obviously quali as well. I was doing the test sessions. Croft is a really fun circuit up in Yorkshire. Bit of a drive.
Not too far from me. Only about an hour away from me.
You're local, as it were. But I had a very interesting first race, because on my second lap, I had a stone that got caught under my throttle cable, which meant during the race I was wide open on the throttle. But obviously it's such an alien car. It's completely different. No power steering, ABS, traction control, none of that. There's a dash that's got an ignition switch, a fire extinguisher, and a few, like a rev count. That's it. Everything's quite alien. Once this happened, once the revs got stuck open, I really was, you're like, what do I do in this situation? I haven't been on track many times, but luckily I just dipped the clutch, rode it into the pit, switched off the ignition, and it rolled. These cars just roll. Like they don't. As long as you're not on the clutch or the brake, they will just keep rolling. So I came into the pits. My team was at turn 1 watching. So I had another team, took the back off to have a look for me, figured the issue out. Luckily, they actually put the casing down with the camera facing. So you watch me get a pit stop where they fixed the car issue in 2 laps, and I was sent back where I started. So whilst obviously you don't want to, you don't want to ruin anyone's races by trying to overtake them. You're still back in the race and having fun. But I qualified 15th out of 20 in my first weekend, which, that's for your first ever time, is pretty good going. And then what you then found was I got way too excited in the race. Like I was keeping up with people at, P15, and having to battle, but you're going so fast in these cars that I'd come round sunny in, sunny out. If anyone knows those corners in Croft, they are big commit, downforce grip, like a lot of grip corners that if you get it wrong, you're in the barrier, which was very difficult to do. But I would come out I've come out that corner. I thought I was going to be able to overtake someone, but I'd get distracted and go on the gravel, and then I was making gains, but then I was losing the composure because it was such an alien situation to be in. But I'll never forget that first weekend, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And Croft is a great circuit. I went there for the touring cars a couple of years ago. I'll have to make sure that if you're racing there again next year, that I'll come and visit you when you're racing. It'd be great to see you in person and at a race circuit just like that, because it's fantastic. Now I've also noticed as well that your car it's not a semi-automatic gearbox, is it? You've got to actually change gear properly. How does that work? Because for a lot of people, this is going to be completely new. They're used to paddle shift on their sim rig or on their car, and do you have to kind of double the clutch and things, or do you have to kind of blip the throttle as you change down and things to go down the gears, or how does it all work?
Great question, and there's a few factors that come into that. So I was the same, right? So I went from karting for a year where it was left foot braking, you know what you're doing, and I'd always driven stick shift plenty, and I came into F1000 thinking, brilliant, it's going to be left foot braking and should be flappy paddle, but it might be a stick shift, and I'll deal with it. Little did I know that these cars are quite old, right? Mine was built in 2000. These, I think they were designed in the late 80s or even 90s. They were originally hill climb cars, hence why they're so small and agile. And my hopes and dreams of similarity with a sim where I was left foot braking and paddle with flappy paddle was out the window, because they are not even close to that. So we have a clutch pedal, but because it's a bike engine, now I won't get too technical because I don't know it. I'm not that good with that stuff. But because it's a bike engine, it's a sequential gearbox. Now, even the confusion there when you're trying to pull away in it is obviously the clutch on a bike is a hand clutch, so it doesn't move very far, does it? Then also, so these cars are notoriously difficult to pull away in because the movement on the clutch is minimal. There's almost nothing. I think when I first got in the car in the paddock, I think I stalled it 7 times trying to pull away, and I've driven plenty of clutch cars, but there's just the bite points. You're either on or you're off, and that's it. Revs don't help unless you're trying to launch it. So what you end up doing is you need to be high in the rev range because it's a bike engine. So you don't need to heel and toe in these. So if you're in a Honda Civic, you're probably shifting at 7,000, maybe 7,500, redlining it at 8 max, probably lower than that. But you would heel and toe in that, right? And your right foot braking, heel and towing. Because it's a bike engine, the shifts are so quick anyway, and the revs are in such a high range. So we shift up at 12.6, but the revs don't drop below 10 really. And that's where you're playing in that range. And it just means that you're shifting a lot because there's 6 gears as well. So people ask this question all the time: why don't you left foot brake? I would argue there's very few corners on the calendar that you don't shift gear for. So there's, I'd struggle to name one, maybe Silverstone International turn 4 that you go up to high end of third and then you just lift. But yeah, there's so much torque in these cars that it controls the platform with the throttle. And the way that you shift is upshifting is just a small lift of the throttle, very small. You're talking from 100% to 90%. But if you don't get them at the same time, it won't go into gear. I do get quite a few comments on the channels from bike enthusiasts and people that know the bikes saying, if you just leant on the shifter, it would naturally shift where it wants to. But in a race scenario, you don't want to trust that. It's going to work. But on the downshift, you're using the clutch. And you don't really want to ride the clutch and put down multiple times. So you're kind of pumping your leg and the shifter at the same time, which kicks the rears a lot. I had a friend just drive my car actually at Donington, and he rode the clutch into the corner, but when he dumped it, it kicks the rears a lot because you got no traction control. So they're not simple at all. Very difficult cars to drive. And when you're going at those speeds, a lot of the F3 cars would be clutch just to get into first, but then you're either paddle or still sequential, but you can flat shift and you don't need. Whereas these, going into a braking zone at some of the speeds we're doing and the lap times we're putting in up, faster than GT4. Some tracks we're getting close to GT3 times. They're not slow. And having to right foot brake whilst figuring out the gears and shifting, it can be a lot to think and manage at the same time.
Yeah, no, it sounds intriguing, and also, I mean, that is as much a technical thing just to be able to keep the car on the track as well as trying to race and go faster and get the best line, and you've got a lot going through your mind, I imagine, as it all works, as it all comes through. We've actually got some of the guys watching German Kiwi, who is a musician as his day job, but a very, very fast sim racer and one of the top guys on GT7 for setting kind of racing lap times and races with all the big stars of GT7 on YouTube. So they're all desperate to learn the kind of tips as to how it all works and how to go fast. And what is the kind of differences that you experience going from, say, a good sim racing kind of game to then going, for example, driving your single seater? Because have you driven a lot of single seater racing games and then kind of tried to see are there any likenesses at all in those kind of games to what you're doing for real?
Absolutely, and that's why we're so lucky to be at a time in the world where sim racing is so good now. It wouldn't get the endorsements of Max Verstappen. It wouldn't have, people like Jimmy Broadbent, Super GT, Steve, all of these people that are the pioneers of what we all want to achieve and want to do. They can do it because those sims are so good now, so widely available, so relatively cheap. Obviously you can get a sim these days for money that, half a weekend in racing, and then you've got it for life.
But I think we both know that the best thing about sim racing is you can drive any track at any time in any car, right? That's the beauty of it. So in answer to your question of I drive plenty of single seaters, and the advantage I had going to all of my first races, and even still now, of being able to know the tracks, right? Because I hadn't even heard of half the UK circuits before I started racing, because I was so new to it. Somewhere like Croft, didn't even know it existed. And being able to do hundreds, if not thousands, of kilometers on those tracks. So I knew exactly what gear it was. I knew where my brake points were, and I knew roughly what line I was taking. You just can't. And for me, I don't struggle, but watching people's onboards is useful. But you can't beat going through the muscle memory and the motions yourself. And that was completely game changing for the confidence to be able to turn up. And everyone that I race against says it as well. If all these new ones into racing, they say the sims, it's, yes, the number one thing is the G-forces, of course. And when you're racing something like an F1000, until you understand how fast these cars are and the lap times they're putting in and the G's you're pulling with the slick tires around some of the certain circuits and certain corners. Even so, it is all roughly the same. Like I drive the F4 on AC to get to practice, basically.
Oh, yeah.
I think, and then it just comes down to the type of sim, right? The reason I upgraded from my Logitech G29 was just because I needed a more responsive brake pedal. That was it.
Yeah.
Steering wasn't, I could have used a bit more feedback, but it wasn't the end of the world. But not being able to properly trail brake was a bit of a problem. So when I went to my Fanatec, then it felt a lot more real. And then I'm lucky enough that a friend of mine, the sim behind me at my friend's house, he's got a Simu Cube. So, even the level up,
they're lovely.
You can set the brake pedals, whatever pressure you want. You can mimic whatever car you want. It is it's incredible. And from that, you just end up practically driving this. It feels identical, except the G's. It's incredible what you can do now.
Yeah, no, it is amazing watching it. In fact, I was down at Brands Hatch in August for the first time, and I went there with my son, and we went to the sim racing centre at Brands Hatch, and it was great fun actually. I had a wonderful time. A 20-minute session, first of all in Group 4 cars, and then also in the F4 cars. And I have to say it was brilliant because it was on iRacing. I think that they used that setup. But the steering was quite heavy, but you could really feel everything. And with the headphones on and the whole thing happening, it gave you an amazing feeling of what it must be like to drive the car and how steep the embankments are. I mean, when you look at Brands Hatch on any game, it looks quite a wide circuit, or reasonably wide when you're playing the game. But when you get there, it is like a farm track in terms of it's hardly. You think, can you get two cars together on the start finish straight? It's that narrow. So it must be quite an adjustment. I think obviously the newer games are better at giving you that kind of feel for what the track is like. But it is amazing how much better they are than what they used to be. So going on forward, you've got another season next year. What are your kind of hopes for kind of finishing in that championship? Because you've had podiums. How many? You've had a podium finish here or more. What would be your kind of target for next year?
It's a great question, and I'll give a quick summary of how I've done so far, right? Just to give some context onto what I'm trying to achieve, because it's.
I might get a few laughs if any of the F1000 guys are watching or will be watching. But like I say, I only started 2.5 years ago. I did half the season, which coming into that world of any form of racing, it's very intense. You're wheel to wheel. The pressure of the money, let's be honest, is number one. You're not funded by someone else. If you're not on a development path, if you crash it, you pay for it, right? And it already costs enough to get onto the circuit. So you're a lot more hesitant and you hold back, and you maybe don't race as hard as you do in sim racing, right? And the perfect example is I did 3 races, did really well, didn't have any major dramas, enjoyed it, loved it. First race of the season last year, so 24, was Brands Hatch actually. And the first 2 races I did, poodling around in the middle, enjoying myself, but wasn't super competitive. And my team manager, Stuart of Team Sellers Racing, watched my video, and for the 3rd race said, "Oh, you can get much closer to people. You're backing off a lot. You're very nervous, right?" And I was like, "Yep, that's exactly the problem." And he said, "Well, let's get closer. You can stay close. If you lift off the throttle, you back off a lot. It's and that's when I had my first proper race with someone. Sam Satchwell, great driver, been in it about a year longer than me, and it just completely changed then the trajectory of what I was doing. So I suddenly went, that's how you race closer. So then I spent the rest of last year getting better. I had a P7 and a P8 or something, and started to have better results. But also it wasn't so much about the results. It was more about, could I race someone? Could I put in big moves? Could I make overtakes? Did I trust my driving? Which went fairly well. I had a pretty rubbish engine last year, which it blew up in the last race of the season at Donington, which at the time obviously was pretty horrendous because it meant that I triple DNF for Donington, which is pretty horrendous, but it meant that I had a new engine for the season. So I came to this season with the new engine, which was quick and it was really good. I also came in with all the confidence, right? Of I can do this. I'm pretty much like, I'm going to go for it. And yeah, like you say, I managed to get 2 podiums this season. I was plagued with a really unfair amount of DNFs this year. So my finishing position in the championship has no relevance to how I did the season. But if you take my season, so I did the 6 F1000 races, and I also did the monoposto round at Silverstone, which was the GP circuit at Silverstone. That was the third race of the season, sorry. At Snetterton, which was the second race, the first race, my rear wing came off in the second lap.
Oh no!
It's a freak accident. Never happened to anyone before, which I get told a lot with what happens to me. But the photographer caught it. You can actually there's multiple pictures in a row of the wings coming off. And my teammate who I was racing at the time, he was behind me, caught it all on camera. And I couldn't figure out why, but I suddenly just rocketed down the straight, gapped him by a mile. But then I didn't realize turn 1 at Snetterton, that double fast right-hander, which in the F1000s a very light brake and just dropping to 5th to keep the revs high. But it is, as soon as you broke, you turn in slowly, but on the throttle, pretty much flat through the second apex. I didn't understand why the back stepped on entry and mid-corner and on exit. So I'm wrestling this car and I checked in the mirror, which was very small, vibrating, into the braking zone to the hairpin, and then realized the wings come off.
Oh, goodness.
I spent a full race with no rear wing, which where I was saying earlier, these cars aren't high downforce cars. Well, that proved to me how much the downforce does actually impact it. So that was just an example of how like the cars are a handful. Anything can happen in a race, but it depends on how you deal with that issue, right? And I dropped because I gained 2 positions, but then dropped those 2 positions, but then held off other people with no rear wing. And then
that's crazy.
The next weekend was Silverstone, and I took that confidence of, I know what I'm doing. You know, like if I can handle the car with no rear wing, I'm gonna be all right here. And in the monoposto, my category, so the 1000cc, because it's mixed class, right? So multi-category within. There's a lot because it's a slightly cheaper running series with slightly less regs. I'd say that the standard within the direct competition is a little bit lower. But the guy that wins it every time, Matty Horton, fantastic driver, beat me the first year I did it. He's the one to beat, basically. But then what's fun is you've got the F3 guys that are at the front that by lap time, you're not directly comparable, but it's still fun to race them and give it a go. So then out of nowhere, I managed to I qualified P8 average. Like I say, I dropped back to 22nd and then got back to 3rd all in one race. Now, I did get lucky with the safety car. But the video just even objectively is incredible, managing to overtake do 18 overtakes in one race and work my way back up. And then in the following race, I started P3, managed to get to P1 by the first corner cops, managed to last half a lap in the front and then made a mistake. And anyway, just held my position, basically, had some really good battles. But then and then I also got the lap record in monoposto's lap record in the 1000cc. But I built that by 1.4 seconds, which is not anyone in that races, right? That's a huge amount of time to have beaten someone that, you know, have multiple lap records. So that again filled me with all this confidence going forwards to be like, wow, this, you know, I've definitely got something here. I'm learning quickly. And then I had what came next? Cadwell Park, technical, difficult, scary, dangerous, so much fun. Got my first podium in F1000 in that weekend. I then had a massive mistake by crashing on the formation lap, which was super embarrassing. But again, it's a learning curve and stuff happens, right? It's one of those. So, and then the following race was Silverstone International with F1000 again. And that one, I had a bad quali due to an issue with the car. Race 1, I had an issue, which meant I broke down. I got a fantastic professional picture of 3 marshals pushing me off the circuit. Race 2, I had something broke on the last lap, and you're just thinking, when's my luck going to come in?
Yeah.
Started P3 in the last race, stalled it, dropped 3 positions, but then managed to get back and get my first P3, even overtaking a guy that won the championship in 22.
Yeah.
I hope what's come across is anything can happen.
Yeah.
You can have ups and downs, but once you start getting it, once you start getting the feel for the car, you start getting confident in yourself. It all extrapolates, because the more confident you are, the more speed you carry through corners. You mentioned the chicane at Donington.
Yeah.
The more speed you carry, the more grip you're going to have from the tires, and the more the platform's going to, depending on how good you are on the throttle, the more you're going to be able to do with the car. And I think the biggest change I had this year was getting a driver coach. So I work with Matthew Round Herido, who is a British-Spanish driver. He used to do F3, Formula Atlantic over in the US. He's got a big sort of Instagram and I believe TikTok following. I'd say he's the Brummy driver coach, the Birmingham-based driver coach that does a lot of awesome videos, often coaching Formula Ford and all this. And I just got in touch with him because I followed his videos, liked his racing and liked his coaching. Started working with him this year, and just immediately the time was shaving off. All these results started coming, and then it was like, oh, wow. But having someone actually tell you what to do and what you're doing wrong live straight after a session completely changed the game and enabled me to make huge improvements. So all of that came together in 1 year. So even though I had terrible results in the table, awful, because I only had about a 50% finish rate. The results I got, I didn't finish outside of P8, and that was in the first race where I actually had an issue with the engine. Then I got a couple of P5s, a P4, and 2 P3s. So you're like, I can actually do
That's
it.
pretty good. Yeah.
I've got the coach. I've got the confidence going into next year. So my goal is absolutely a race win. The goal was a race win at Donington, the final race of the season. I unfortunately got 2 DNFs I got a DNF, and then the race 2 was cancelled because of fog for everyone.
That's right. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's
crazy, unprecedented. But that's where I was going to go for a win. Would it have happened? Who knows? But next year it will be definitely going for a couple of wins. It will be going for as many podiums as possible. I think the goal is for the championship. Absolutely. I'm going to be going for it. And I think I've got a reasonable chance. There's a lot of good drivers. Rob Wellham won the championship in 22. Fantastic. Always on the podium, always winning. Hard one to beat. Matt Higginson won it for the first time this year, but has been doing it 4 years, I think. Watching his onboards, part of you thinks, can I ever go that fast? I don't know. The car, the way he throws it into corners is just unbelievable. James Clennell started the same time as me. He had a lot, like 10 years racing experience in other single-seaters before, so he had a bit of an advantage there. But he got his first win this year and first podium, but before I did. And he's quick. We've had some good battles. I've managed to finally beat him and overtake him. My teammate Tom Westworth is quick. So there's a lot of quick drivers. I think part of it comes down to a bit of luck with reliability, and then others just comes down to how you perform on the weekend, really. So going for my multiple wins. I'll be going for the championship, but I would be very happy with a podium in the main championship.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And you actually covered my next question, because it was going to be driver coaching. So you very nicely brought that one in for me for there. But no, it's I think next year, seeing what you're able to do and hopefully come in a car that's got good reliability and the confidence and the skills you've learned, you have a good chance of being very competitive. And we'll have to keep up with the results and see how things all pan out. But one of our viewers has said, what is your favourite track to race on in the series?
It's a great question, and I'm going to narrow it down to 2, say why they're both incredible, and then I'll say the one that I think is my favourite. So the 2 tracks are Cadwell Park and Alton Park. Now, Alton Park is just a special track. It is just so much fun. The pace you carry through turn one, that weird little kink over the going into to what I guess that's technically turn two, into turn three, the left-hand sweeper.
Yeah.
Island bend into shallow oil corner is an obscenely crazy. In our F1000, it's technically flat. Now, only the top 3 or 4 will stay flat consistently around that corner. Everyone else has a little lift. I think the data said I did 1 flat round there. The rest of it, I had a minor lift just because it didn't feel right. Shallow oil being banked, like a lot of Zandvoort, the chicanes, the up and over the bridge, the double right-hander at the top, I think called Druids. It's just a mental circuit, but because of the undulation, it just feels, and it's so thin and the walls are close, it feels like a roller coaster. Cadwell Park, pretty similar, right? It's they call it the mini Nürburgring. I've done a few videos. I mean, on my channel, I've got lots of onboards from Cadwell Park. It's an incredible circuit that you're just so close to the grass and you've got nowhere to overtake. You've very little chance to overtake. It's kind of like a Monaco in the sense that, but the sense of accomplishment when you put a lap together at Cadwell, that you don't crash into the wall like I have done. I've got 100% crash rate at Cadwell. Both times I've been to Cadwell, I've crashed. But when you go through the hall bends at the end and get into that right-hander at the end, when you get it right, it's another roller coaster. I think the problem is the risk at Cadwell, you are almost certainly hitting the wall if you come off and pick at the speeds we're going. So therefore, and because I have 100% crash rate at this circuit, I think I would say that Alton Park is my favorite circuit. And unfortunately this season we were supposed to be going there for the second race and it got removed in place of Brands Hatch, which when you're only doing the Indy, whilst it's a special circuit, don't get me wrong, turn one, incredible. Like it's Paddock Hill is just an amazing corner. It is a short circuit and it is more technical than people realize, but I'm hopefully going to be doing the GP Brands next year, which I'm excited for. But when we had Alton swap for Brands, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the most enjoyable.
Because the Alton Park has got a lot of challenges, isn't it? And there's so many different layouts as well that you can play on it. But in terms of in the games, but it's I imagine in real life, it must be something else. Trying to go around that and master it, and also Cadwell Park, because it's very complicated. There's lots of different sections, and again very narrow. And I think just I find if I can do a short circuit quite well and not go off that, it's a good thing and get a competitive time on a sim. But that is a long circuit, isn't it? When they do the full circuit at Cadwell Park, it's quite a bit to get round there, and so many undulations. You must be, your brain power must be pretty good to be able to keep it all together and race, and your fitness and things like that. In fact, brings me on to my next question. How fit do you have to be, and what kind of difference does being very fit make to being a racing driver in your series?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's sometimes a little bit of a disappointing answer to those that think that I'm a fitness guru who does all the neck exercises that Carlos Sainz does. But the truth is, and I think I spotted it on the chat today, that the truth is in amateur racing, your races are very short, unless you're doing some sort of endurance, or an enduro race that's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
There's a lot of races to get through. So our races are 15 minutes in F1000. If you do the mono, it's 20 minutes. Yeah. So it's not a lot of time. So the physical fitness, you need to be semi-fit. You can't not be. It's almost more the mind, because like you just said, the speeds you're going at, and if you make a small mistake from just losing focus, but that's what happens is by the end of the race, it's the physical fatigue that impacts it. It's the physical fatigue that impacts your brain, and then obviously, when you're trying to keep it on circuit, it does make a big difference. I am generally fit. I don't work out as much anywhere near as I should do. Funnily enough, my sport growing up, the reason I wasn't into racing was I was a gymnast of all things. Super, quite random. But it gave me so much core strength, and I walk on my hands and all that fun stuff. So when you're sat in the car and the core strength there, that's something I always had a personal advantage to, really. But yeah, it definitely there are some drivers that are a bit older and a bit less fit, and they get out of the car and they struggle. And where I mentioned that Brands Hatch race, where I had my first wheel to wheel for 20 laps at Brands Hatch, which is not a circuit where you get any break, it's constant turning.
Yeah.
You can see it on the camera when I park up back in the paddock. I tried to get myself out the car and I just collapsed. I was heavy breathing, and I think because you're fighting the adrenaline as well. That's what your body's doing. Once you get used to the adrenaline and you can physically deal with that, then all the decision making slows down and is a lot calmer. So it all plays into effect, right? But the respect I have for F1 drivers doing 5-6 Gs for 2 hours is incredible.
Yeah.
Even if I had to do an hour race in a car with this much downforce, I think I would struggle, but I would get there eventually,
Yeah, no, it's quite a thing. I remember once I went to, we were watching the Italian Grand Prix at a Ferrari dealer in Edinburgh. This was about 20 years ago or more. And they had lots of sponsors and all the kind of tech stuff that was in there. And one of it was called F1 Gym. And so in the showroom, they'd cleared out some of the cars and they had these incredible exercise machines that was like the one that you would sit in, and it had a weight on your neck, either side of your neck, so they could see if you could move this thing, and it was just to build up your neck exercise. And I think that's the thing you see with racing drivers in general. There's not much fat on them. They're so thin, aren't they? But their strength is incredibly strong and mentally absolutely sound. Which is the incredible thing. But I remember the one difference was talking to David Perel, who obviously he's a very athletic driver, very successful driver. But he said in GT3 and some of the endurance races, there are drivers in there that are not quite so fit, but they still, I suppose, because they're doing driver changes, but their level must be up to a certain degree to be able to last their stint. But there's a bit more room for maneuver. But in single seaters, you've got to be so light, isn't it? Because there's not much room in them. So it's how was it like? In terms of, are you pretty much enclosed in, kind of a bit like Formula One? Is it almost to that kind of level? Do you think?
Absolutely. But whenever I have friends, family, or whomever, any time, there's amateur racing. If you haven't gone to a live amateur race or just normal racing, the access you get is incredible. You can just turn up at any awning, go speak to any driver or any team and ask to sit in their car. They'll always let you. You can the amount of kids I've made their day because they're looking from afar and you say, you and your dad come in, sit in the car, rev the engine, all that. They love it. But everyone's always surprised getting into the car because you have to, you're basically laying down first of all. And if you're a little bit bigger than me, you're going to struggle to get in. People are always surprised at how low the wheel is and how tight it is. So no, they are very small cars and stuff like that. Yeah.
Do you have to take the wheel off in order to get in, or
I can just about squeeze in with the wheel on, but it's much easier to get out. Most people wouldn't be able to, but obviously I know what I'm doing there. So
no, it's fantastic. When I was 18 and I did it was the Jim Russell School of Racing at Dorrington Park. Because I was thin enough in those days. Unfortunately, I'm not quite that weight now. I was about 11 stone at those days, or 10, 11 stone. So they actually put me in. There was two different cars that they had: the Formula Vauxhall, the kind of standard car, and then the Formula Vauxhall Lotus as well, which was kind of next to it. Because I was thin enough, they put me in the Vauxhall Lotus. But unfortunately, I was wearing these shoes that were just too long. I mean, my feet are not very big. I've only got size 9.5 feet, but I was wearing shoes that were a bit too long, and so I struggled to get full feel of the pedals. But there it was quite a thing. And I remember just being it's quite almost claustrophobic when you're trying to get into it and you think, can I get out? Or I could get out in those days. I don't know if I'll be able to get out now, but it's certainly, it's quite a thing. And also your field of vision. I mean, when we watch your videos on your channel, you're obviously using a higher camera so you can see above what's going on. What is your field of view actually like when you're actually racing? What can you really see?
Yeah, it's a good question. And in my videos, sometimes, not as often as I'd like, I do actually have a visor cam that sits on my eyebrow. It's one of the cam boxes I think that some of the F1 uses sometimes, which gives the true perspective. So it shows you the dash and the sort of rounded bit on top of the car over the wheel is basically, I see most of that and then the rest of it. The thing is, because you have the hands device attached, it's very difficult to turn your head. You can't move more than this. That's
Yeah.
basically the limitation of it. So even
Yeah.
when you're coming out of the pits, you kind of
you
look
can't
right.
see, yeah.
That's why they rely on people to tell them to go, right? Obviously, also safety, but
And you truly, if you're trying to look, you're like trying to do this and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, and the field of vision's not bad. It's just if someone's coming up behind you, but then you've got these tiny little mirrors that vibrate and you can't see a lot. So, and then you're open wheel as well. So you've got wheels inside each other. It's quite interesting, but
yeah. That's fantastic. No, it's been absolutely super. We've been going for 55 minutes already. It's flown in in no time at all. But we certainly found out a good bit about your F1000 car. And from our pre-show chat, you don't have your calendar yet for next year, but roughly about April time, you reckon that's when the season will be starting.
Yeah, that's right. So just based on the calendar last year, which was similar to the year before, I think the first race is usually right at the end of April as the first race weekend in F1000. There should be 6 races. The Monoposto calendar is already out. So they have announced that the Silverstone GP layout is back on the calendar. So that will be me racing F3 cars again. It's my best performing video on my YouTube channel because there were so many overtakes. It's against F3 cars. It's at the GP circuit. So it's awesome. But then the most exciting thing is the Brands GP is definitely on the calendar next year for Monoposto. So I will definitely be doing that one as well because I'm dying to do the full circuit at Brands. I might have an exciting announcement coming in the next month or two with the channel of I might possibly be racing another type of car for just a feature race for next year. Which might be abroad. So I've just done everything I needed to do to get my international license. So that I might be making an announcement that I may be going to one of the very famous European circuits to be racing there. So trying to cross all the T's and dot the I's for that one, which would be really exciting. But yeah, very excited for next year. There's a lot to happen, and it's just crazy to have this 5-month period where it's finished. Because that is it feels like a long season, and then as soon as it's over it doesn't feel like a very long season. And
plenty of content to make over the winter, that's for sure.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing all of that. I always remember in the old days when the Grand Prix only had 15 races, and by the end of October it was all finished, and then that was it. You had to wait till probably the end of March time before it started again. But at least you got 6 months to recover and get yourself ready for all these new races that will come, and I'm sure some exciting announcements as well. If we could have one last quick question, what would be your top tip for aspiring sim racers in terms of how to go fast, how to get the most out of their sim racing?
That's a great question. Budget dependent, I would say a coach. You can, until you know whether you understand car feel, how well you know it. People like the Suelio and stuff, they have these amazing courses, but then it all depends on your level, right? If someone's a faster driver than you, my best friend Sam, he's got a sim here, and I can sit and watch and I can tell him what he's doing wrong to get him my pace. But then if he needs to go faster than me, I'm going to struggle telling him because I don't know, right? And like I said, I've been faster at every circuit this year. I've got a lap record in a certain category or series. Improved my results so significantly because I had a professional driver coach explaining where I was going wrong. Other than that, I would say there's plenty of free videos out there to watch, understanding things like slip angle and getting the car feel, trying different types of car right as well, because the difference between downforce and single seater and even between like GT cars and how you have to drive them, I think. So get as much time in the car as you can, listen to others that know what they're talking about. But
fantastic. Well, that's been super. Stay on the line as we try to bring the show to a close. But you've been watching the Hugh Hatrick show with a very special guest. Indeed, it is Bert Chapman from Chapman's Corner. The link to subscribe to Bert's channel, which of course is Chapman's Corner on YouTube, is in the description. So please make sure you subscribe to his excellent channel. To have to say, as soon as I discovered it, I was enthralled. It was amazing to seeing you hear through these crowds of cars, especially at the start, and cars were going on the left and on the right, and you kind of would feel your way through and find a gap. and managed to overtake many cars in a very short period of time. And I was trying to keep up with the counting. I think, how many cars? What position is he in? And then you had a little counter that was there telling you how many you had gone past.
It's one of those things, Hugh. I've only been doing YouTube 2 years, and I only took it really seriously this year. It's honestly one of those things where I try my best to respond to all the comments, show everything everyone wants, but it's hard to do everything from all the editing and getting all the content together. But what my channel tries to do is bring true amateur racing, warts and all. Like, I don't hold back. I'll show you my crashes every time I crash, all the silly mistakes I do, all the mistakes I make, and all the things that plague you as a driver. I try and show all of that, as well as all these really fun onboards. Like you say, there's a lot of overtakes, there's crashes, there's spins, there's lots of cool things. But then also I've been trying to show a bit of the behind the scenes, the mechanics, the issues that go wrong. So just trying to bring the world of amateur racing in all its glory to fans and people that like racing, really.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I speak for many who have watched it, many of your subscribers. You do a fantastic job in really entertaining us all and really educating us on how it works to be a racing driver in this modern day and age, with the ups and the downs of your challenges in racing, but also the great results that you've had as well. So I wish you all the best for next year, and you're welcome back on the show at any time. It would be fantastic to have you back and to find out how better you do in the future. And there's my mother. I said, don't phone till after 7:30, but she's phoned already. But I've got the chain on the music. That's why I know she's phoning. But there you go. But thank you very much for joining with us tonight, Bert. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And hopefully we'll have you back again very soon with more updates on your championship. Who knows? You could be next year's F1000 champion. And you will see it here first on the Hugh Hatrick Show. But thank you very much, everyone, for watching. This will be on the podcast. And our famous motto is, of course, drive fast, don't crash. We'll see you very soon. Bye just now.